really hot. It was probably 33 Celsius, and then 33, and then now the winter probably minus like a 25, 30. So compared with that, I just like here. I don't mind the rain because I personally don't like the heat at all. So I love the weather here though. Even though it's raining all the time.
You're one of a kind. Then. I have actually noticed that a lot of the Chinese from more southern parts, like right now, it's about 13 degrees out. I think it's warm. I'm basically in a t-shirt today. I think that's great. But I notice a lot of my Chinese friends still walking around wrapped up because I think it's freezing out.
Yeah.
And,
for us, sometimes it seems like there's no summer here because in China, summer means over 30 degrees, but in here, summer means over 20, or is that true?
If it's over 20, we have a party. Yeah. Barbecue.
And you just have the sunshine. You need the sunshine. That means you have in summer.
This weekend, you have your first summer.
You know, the Chinese people are Irish people are noticeably happier if the sun is shining. It's rare. It affects us, I think.
I think it's a good way though, because it just seems the whole nation got activated, once the sun comes up. And it's good. And it makes people in a good form, like people being happy, and then everybody's in a happy form when yesterday, plus the Trinity Bowl was on last night, but the whole day, just everybody is smiling, everybody's just so active yesterday all day. I think because of a part of the weather as well.
True.
I also think Irish people find it very hard to work when it's sunny out.
That's right.
We feel like we're wasting it. It's a rare opportunity. We should be outside enjoying it. What am I doing in the office or studying? But actually, speaking of seasonal things and celebrating and stuff, what about your own Chinese cultural experiences you brought here? Did you celebrate like Spring Festival, Chinese New Year when you're here? Is there much of a celebration within the Chinese community?
Should I go first?
Sure. Just,
I started celebrating now, but we started celebrate just went out with the friends for some Chinese traditional dinners, and then now, because Dublin City Council has organized so many events during those Chinese festival season, so I tend to be there a lot. And then college societies, Chinese societies, and then alumni societies. So we created some events, but those things only happen probably in the past 5 years. But 5 years more, I didn't really celebrate New Year. What I did the first 3 years, I think I was just, every time the New Year's coming, I just ran my mom with the tears in my eyes. I couldn't, because at that time it was my difficult times, try to finish the college, and then I have to say college was really, really difficult, so I couldn't have a spare energy to think about, Chinese New Year.
Right.
But as you can see, in the past 5 years, Chinese community getting stronger. And Dublin Council, the government, they put in a lot of money, I think, to create some environment for Chinese community, for Irish community as well.
I think there's a big push right now to strengthen ties. You've got the Confucius Institute and the various Chinese societies and universities, and it's a sort of a real effort to just basically create a connection there. You had Mary McAleese's trip to China recently, where she addressed them on strengthening ties between universities and stuff as well. And there's obviously a growing.
I'm so glad to see those, because 12 years I can see between the cooperation between China and Ireland just start from very, I don't know, it's zero. I don't think it was zero back to 12 years ago, but start from very little up to now, big growth. I'm really happy to see that.
Okay. We're actually running out of time for this segment, so if you are interested in this conversation, would like to continue following, we will be continuing this discussion next week, so please tune in with us next week to hear the rest of the guys' discussion on the Chinese aspects in the Irish community.
有一种落寞的温暖，纠结在玻璃上，画着你的模样，开着车漫无目的的转弯，不知要去哪个地方。鸟雀的电视墙， 到底有谁在看？白杨木影子被拉长。
Now we come to the news section. I'm the presenter for this week, Ruiyao.
Hi Ruiyao, I'm Dan, and I'm going to talk to you today about some topical issues.
So let's come to the most significant news about China this week. It is the annual BRICS summit of 5 leading emerging economies that took place in the southern Chinese city of Sanya last Thursday. Heads of state of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa coordinated their stance on economic and international issues. The term BRIC was first brought forward by Goldman Sachs chief economist James O'Neill to group 4 fast-growing economies: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. The 4 countries held their first annual summit in Russia in 2009 and have developed into an organization for the interests of developing countries ever since, much like the Group of 20 for developed economies. South Africa was invited to join by the Chinese last December and given the group its S. The 5 countries combined represent 40% of the world's population and 20% of the global output, which is deemed to be even higher in the future. Daniel, what do you think about the impact that BRICS can have in the future?
I think certainly from a conceptual standpoint, I think it's a very good idea to combine countries in similar states of development and with similar goals on a global stage. That seems a very strong idea behind the concept of the BRICS. So in that regard, I think it's a great idea, and it will give them much more sway and fighting power on the international stage and in the G20 summits. But the thing that perplexes me about the BRICS is these are countries that seem to be scattered across the globe. They don't seem to have any immediate connection, rather than the fact that they're in similar stages of development. And for example, I think I read that Brazil, Russia, India and South Africa, roughly 12% on average of their trade is with China, while each of these countries with each other, all their trade is only 3%. So I think there's an issue of a lack of economic integration within the BRICS at the moment.
Yeah, maybe that analyzes why China is currently seem to be in the leading position of the BRICS. All these head of states were eager to talk with China.
Yeah, it seems to be a way for these other countries to integrate more with China and discuss issues with them rather, which seems obviously is a good thing in some ways, but obviously for the future of the BRICS it's not necessarily ideal. I would like to see some more trade between the other members of the BRICS, and I'd also like to see maybe an idea of including some other members. The likes of Mexico and South Korea and Indonesia are developing at a faster pace than South Africa even, so they could certainly be considered for entry as well.
Well, let's put the issue of South Africa's entry to later stage, but just look at the current development of the BRICS now. At the press conference following the meeting, President Hu Jintao of China said reforming global economic governance and increasing the say of developing countries would be conducive toward peace and prosperity. He mentioned that the 5 nations agreed to further cooperation on trade, healthcare, science and technology, as well as agriculture. They vowed to make efforts toward an international financial order and cooperate to address issues on their development. China wants to push the group for a joint position on some economic issues like fluctuating commodity prices, like you said, and this could boost the BRICS joint heft in the G20 talks. This can be difficult for nations that are vastly different and sometimes compete with each other for market shares. For example, for the BRICS, such a reality makes it more important for them to dig for common interests and through summits. For example, Brazil is an exporter of natural resources to China, but it is worried about Chinese exports of toys, garment, etc. By visiting China this time, President Rousseff of Brazil managed to vend Brazilian jet planes and secured an €8 billion investment from Foxconn, maker of the iPhone and the iPad. The Indian Prime Minister Mohammed Singh made similar attempts by marketing pharmaceutical and IT products to his Chinese counterpart. So, Daniel, as you said,
well, it's just those goals that the BRICS have. They're certainly very admirable, and those are definitely what the the countries should be aiming for, standardized healthcare and regulated commodity trading from an ideal standpoint would be perfect. So in that regard, I think the BRICS combining together will certainly help this. But as I mentioned, if they can combine together and be more integrated as a unit, and we see that kind of trade and bilateral agreements between all the members of the BRICS, I think it will give them a more viable standpoint in summits like the G20.
Yeah, I think you're right. For example, President Hu Jintao mentioned several times that balancing trade is really important for these 5 countries. And also, following the meeting, the national development banks from the 5 countries signed agreement giving each other lines of credit to reduce their reliance on US dollars for their trade. So I think this probably will facilitate trade between the 5 countries.
That's great. Well, if the steps are being made, then certainly the future for the BRICS is bright.
So do you think that the BRICS will play a greater role in the G20 in the future?
Well, of course, yes. These countries are playing greater roles in the world stage as we speak. They account for 40% of the world population, and this figure is set to grow, and certainly their economic development is set to grow. And any kind of bilateral trade agreements between the BRICS will certainly just facilitate growth and economic prosperity, and certainly give them more chance to get their voice heard in the G20.
Okay, so finally, let's just focusing on South Africa, which is the latest member and also the smallest economy among the 5. President Jacob Zuma of South Africa did not conceal his excitement by remarking that it is a historical moment for South Africa. We are looking forward to using this relationship to further advance our agenda of creating jobs, because his government wants to work closely within the group. For reforming global financial system, South Africa wants to curb capital inflows to emerging economies, as the country has struggled to stabilize its currency amid flows of foreign capital.
Certainly, it would seem that there is more benefit for South Africa from them joining the BRICS than there is for the other members. But it is theoretically a very good idea to have a representative from the African continent, and certainly China has a lot of invested interest in Africa, so this will help that matter.
Yeah, actually it is the Chinese that pushed for South Africa's membership because they want a representative from Africa, although there are some controversies because Africa is not in the original BRIC.
Yes, well, as I said, I'd hope to see some more members in the BRICS in the future, especially if it can be shown that only time will tell whether South Africa will bring benefit to the BRICS and whether they will integrate successfully into the BRICS. And if they do, certainly it should be considered to integrate some more members into the agreement.
Yeah, I'm quite confident that the group will play a bigger role within the world. But do you think the BRICS will develop into a group like the G7?
The G7, it's still too early to tell, I think. I hope that they do make some make some breakthroughs together, and I do hope they get a better say in the G20, but it's still too early to tell something like that, I think.
Okay, great. So that's all for our news and discussion for this week. Thank you for listening.
Thanks very much.
Bye. Bye-bye.